In the year 40 AD, 10,000 Roman soldiers, the most battle-hardened army on the planet, were ordered to march to the English Channel, draw their swords, and attack the sea. And here's the part nobody tells you. They won. Officially, the Roman Empire declared victory over the ocean. The soldiers were ordered to collect seashells from the beach, called them spoils of war, and hauled them back to Rome in triumph. The man who ordered all of this was 27 years old. His name was Caligula. And the ocean was not even the weirdest thing he did that year. Picture Rome in 37 AD. 1 million people, the centre of the known world. And the city is absolutely ecstatic because the old emperor just died. Tiberius, paranoid, miserable, deeply unpleasant, is gone. And in his place, stepping into the purple, is young Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus. The people called him Caligula, Little Boot, because as a toddler he'd worn tiny soldier's sandals in his father's military camp, and the legionaries had thought it was adorable. The whole empire thought, finally, a fresh start, a young man, a people's emperor. And for about 7 months, they were right. Caligula was generous. He threw massive public games. He recalled people who'd been exiled. He burned the files that Tiberius had kept on everyone, which, given Tiberius, was a very popular move. The Senate loved him. The people loved him. One ancient writer compared his arrival to a dream. A literal dream. That's how good things seemed. Then, in October of 37 AD, Caligula got sick. Very sick. For weeks, Rome held its breath. Priests sacrificed animals by the thousands. Citizens publicly pledged their own lives in exchange for his. And then, he recovered. Which, on the surface, sounds like great news. It was not great news. The man who walked out of that sick room was not the same man who walked in. Whether it was the illness itself, a breakdown, the sheer terror of nearly dying, or just the slow realization that he was the most powerful person alive and no one could actually stop him. Something had changed. The warm smile was still there, but the eyes were different. Historians have debated this for 2,000 years. What is not debated is what he did next. He had his cousin, his co-heir, his backup, executed. He started showing up to Senate meetings dressed as a god, not symbolically, literally dressed as Jupiter or Neptune or Venus, depending on his mood that morning. Senators who had spent decades navigating the politics of the most powerful empire on Earth now had to figure out the correct facial expression for a man in a goddess costume asking their opinion on grain imports. One senator, according to Suetonius, was summoned urgently to the palace in the middle of the night, convinced he was about to be executed. He arrived to find Caligula in full theatrical costume, dancing. Alone. Just dancing. In the dark. At 3 in the morning. The senator was then made to watch, applaud, and go home. No explanation given. No explanation ever given. But let's talk about the horse, because the horse deserves its own section. His name was Incitatus, Latin for at full gallop, and Caligula loved him. Not in the way a general loves a warhorse, in the way a very powerful person, with no one to tell him no, loves anything. Incitatus had a marble stable, with an ivory manger, with purple blankets, the imperial colour, the colour that senators were not allowed to wear without permission. The horse had furniture. The horse had servants. Ancient sources say the horse had dinner guests, in the sense that Caligula would invite Roman nobles to dine at the horse's stable as the horse's guests. Imagine receiving that invitation. Imagine the RSVP. And then came the announcement. Caligula, according to Suetonius, declared his intention to make Incitatus a consul. A consul. The highest elected office in Rome. a position that had been held by Julius Caesar, by Cicero. The horse was going to join them. One senator reportedly said, and I need you to understand he said this completely seriously, "The horse is very qualified." Nobody laughed. Nobody dared. Now, the ocean. Imagine you're a Roman centurion in the summer of 40 AD. You've spent 15 years fighting actual enemies, Germans in the forests, rebels in the east, border skirmishes that leave real scars. You are a professional. You are proud. You are standing on a cold beach in what is now northern France, and your commanding officer is walking toward you with a very specific look on his face. The order had come down from Rome itself. Caligula had marched north, apparently planning to invade Britain, which would have been a genuine military achievement. The legions assembled, the ships were ready, and then, for reasons that ancient sources don't fully agree on, the invasion just didn't happen. Instead, the emperor walked to the water's edge, stared at the English Channel, and declared war on Neptune, god of the sea. The order went out. Soldiers drew their weapons and advanced on the water. Suetonius writes that they stabbed at the waves, 10,000 men, stabbing the sea. The sea, for its part, did not surrender. The sea had no strong opinions about Roman politics. The sea just kept being the sea. After sufficient stabbing, Caligula declared victory. Neptune was defeated. Rome had conquered the sea. And now, the spoils. Every soldier was ordered to fill his helmet with seashells. These were called officially the spoils of the ocean. The soldiers did it, because the alternative was considerably worse than looking ridiculous. The shells were loaded onto carts. The carts were hauled back to Rome. There was a triumph, a victory parade, the highest military honour the Roman state could bestow. Through the streets of the city that had once defeated Carthage, past the monuments of Caesar and Augustus, 10,000 soldiers marching behind wagons full of seashells. Citizens lined the streets. Nobody said anything. What would you say? Caligula then announced plans to build a lighthouse on the Channel coast as a monument to his victory over the sea. Some sources suggest a structure was actually built. A lighthouse, commemorating the defeat of water by swords. Rome had done many things. Rome had never done this. Caligula returned to Rome and spent the treasury. All of it. The reserves Tiberius had built up over decades, gone in under 4 years on parties, palaces, and a floating dining barge with marble floors and running water that he sailed around the lake just because he could. He then started auctioning off gladiators and exotic animals to raise cash, and when that wasn't enough, he started confiscating the estates of wealthy citizens and executing them for the inheritance. In January of 41 AD, members of his own Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers sworn to protect him, stabbed him in a palace corridor. He was 28 years old. He had been emperor for less than 4 years. His wife and infant daughter were killed the same day. The Senate immediately voted to erase his name from public records. History, however, did not cooperate. Some stories are too strange to erase. So, what actually happened? Let's be honest about this. The seashell episode comes from 2 ancient sources, Suetonius and Cassius Dio. Both wrote about Caligula more than a century after his death, and both had access to earlier accounts that no longer exist. The basic story, soldiers at the Channel, shells collected as spoils, they agree on. But historians have been arguing about what it means ever since. Some scholars think the shell order was a punishment, a humiliation for soldiers who had refused to board ships for Britain. Others think it was a religious ritual that got garbled in retelling. A few think Suetonius was simply enjoying himself. The stabbing the waves detail is harder to verify. Suetonius reports it. Cassius Dio is vaguer. What's certain is that something happened on that beach, and no one involved wanted to explain it in writing. Incitatus's marble stable, ivory manger and servant staff, documented and largely accepted by historians. The dinner parties at the stable, reported by Suetonius, plausible given everything else. The consul plan. This one's contested. Most historians today think it was either a joke at the Senate's expense, a threat that was never carried out, or Suetonius having a very good time writing his book. The horse, as far as records show, never actually held office, though given the competition, it's hard to say he wouldn't have managed. So the next time you're having a bad day at work, the next time your boss makes a decision that makes absolutely no sense, picture a Roman centurion. 15 years of service, every battle, every march, every freezing night in a leather tent. And his crowning achievement is a helmet full of seashells, hauled back to Rome in a cart, declared a victory over the concept of water. He did it anyway. He went home. He probably didn't talk about it much. Next time on Throne of Fools, the Chinese emperor who invented an entirely fake identity, fake name, fake rank, fake career, just so he could give himself promotions. Subscribe. History is only going to get stranger from here.